Hello, Texas Tech faculty. My name is Dr. Ken Griffith. I'm the director of the STEM Teaching, Engagement, and Pedagogy program in the Teaching, Learning, and Professional Development Center. I'm also an instructor in the Department of Biological Sciences, where I've been teaching distance courses since 2015. So I imagine that you're here because you're trying to figure out how you're going to convert your current face-to-face course into a true distance course for summer 2020. The first question you may have is, how is this different from what you've been doing for spring 2020 during the COVID-19 transition? Well, the simple answer is that a distance course has to be designed as a distance course from the ground up. While the spring transition was a reaction to new social distancing recommendations, this is about proactive design for distance delivery. Now that we've covered that, let's talk for a moment about what the development of a course for the summer session is going to look like. So, you may be teaching a 5 to 10 week course. This means that you'll need to make some decisions about how much content you want to cover. The question that you should be asking yourself is, are you going to cover the same amount of material in 5 weeks that you would normally cover in 14 weeks? The choice is yours, obviously, but I recommend that you make a few adjustments. Consider the mile-wide, inch-deep argument. Would you prefer that your students have superficial understanding of many concepts or deep understanding about fewer topics? Of course, like I said, the decision is yours, but one consideration is whether the course you'll be teaching is a prerequisite course for an advanced course. If that's the case, then perhaps it might be worth having a conversation with the professor of that advanced course to coordinate your curriculum with that professor. Distance or not, that's actually a pretty good idea for continuity of curriculum. So now that you've decided on what chapters you're going to cover, do you plan to cover this content synchronously or asynchronously? In other words, are you planning to pre-record your content, or are you going to try and have live sessions? So one may be better suited to your course or to you personally. Perhaps the biggest consideration here has to do with course size. If your course has 50 students or fewer, I would say that you could probably go either way and be successful with that. However, if you have 75, 100, up to 200, 250 students in your distance course, I recommend personally that you pre-record your delivery. So here's a pro tip. If going the asynchronous route, be aware of temporal statements. And what I mean by that is statements like good morning, good afternoon, happy Friday. These might work for face-to-face courses, but for distance courses, these statements might make your students feel a little disconnected if reality doesn't match what you just said. Aside from that, if you're thinking about maybe taking these online for a future distance course, or perhaps you want to supplement your face-to-face courses when we go face-to-face again, you may want to have this for years to come. And you'll want flexibility to be able to move your content around depending upon the semester. So statements like quiz 2 will be due on Monday might work now, but it may not work next semester. So let's move on with the assumption that you've decided to pre-record your videos. So how long should your videos be? Well, 50 minutes, 80 minutes, right? I don't recommend that. In fact, in the TLPDC, we don't recommend that. Under the best of circumstances, attention spans wane. Just think about your last meeting. So our recommendation is that you chunk your material in 10 to 15 minute clips or segments. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, how am I going to transfer all this information in a 15-minute video? Well, I recommend that you transfer this information in multiple 15-minute videos, given any one-time lecture. So if it's a 50-minute typical lecture, perhaps you could do 5-10-minute chunks, make it more digestible. So trust me on this one, there's a lot of reasons as to why this is a good idea. let's go through a few of those reasons. So we'll start with number 5. The fifth good reason for doing this is that the file size of a 10 to 15 minute video is going to be much less likely to have streaming problems, and you're much less likely to get repetitive or redundant emails from students saying there's something wrong with the videos or there's something wrong with Blackboard. Number 4, the file size of a 15-minute video is far less likely to be interrupted during file transfer from your computer to MediaSite. The third best answer, or the third best reason I should say, is if you need to edit your videos, managing a file of 10 or 15 minutes long is going to be much easier in your video editor than, say, a 50 or 80 minute video. The second best reason is that you're going to require far fewer takes. So take 1, take 2, that sort of thing, if you're doing a 10 to 15 minute video versus getting 40 minutes into a 50-minute video and deciding that you don't like any of it. And then the best reason is students are far more likely to actually watch a 15-minute video. So now that you have your videos recorded, and then I recommend that you record those in a .mp4 file, now you need a place to put them, right? I recommend that you contact Joel Martin, that's JOEL.MARTIN at ttu.edu. He's the MediaSite coordinator for Texas Tech. He will help you get started, and he will also support you down the road. I can't say enough about Joel. So another difference between the Spring 2020 online adaptation and the upcoming summer session is that captioning was only recommended for the spring semester. For the summer, it's required. Your first step should be to reach out to TTU eLearning. They have a specific website. I'm going to show that on screen now. And that specific website will show you a form where you can request captioning services. Now, the bonus to having your videos already on MediaSite is that eLearning can simply access those existing media files and start captioning. No more steps for you. So what about interacting with your students? How about interacting with your students in an asynchronous environment? Well, all classes, whether distance or face-to-face, should include some level of interactivity, of course. So how does that work online with 200 students? Well, there's a few ways. Live office hours. So for example, you may be wondering how that would work with 200 students. Now, the unfortunate reality with office hours, whether face-to-face or online, is that few students take advantage of those office hours. So you might consider inviting them one by one or in small groups, 5 to 10, have office hours in 10 to 15 student group sessions. You might consider asking them to schedule an appointment with you and be approachable, because the more approachable you are, the more likely they are to take advantage of that resource. Take advantage of you as that resource, which is why we're here. Live help sessions is another example. So for your videos, you might be focused on getting through PowerPoint slides or Keynote slides or something like that, where you're transferring information, but you're not necessarily working problems or solving problems. A live Q&A session could be 10 to 15 minutes a week where you actually work a problem, or 2 or 3 problems. Now, these don't have to be long sessions. In fact, I recommend that they not be long sessions. Again, think about that 15-minute attention span that we talked about. Consider working 1, 2, or only 3 problems, but I recommend that you make those 2 or 3 problems difficult problems. If they're low-hanging fruit type problems, students will get bored, distracted, they'll tune out. But if they're difficult problems, not only are you upping the rigor of your questioning, but you're also making them more likely to ask you questions about those problems themselves. Another one, and again, speaking of low-hanging fruit, discussion posts are a really great way to get started in interactive engagement for distance courses. I've seen faculty use existing resources such as Blackboard, of course. I've seen faculty in the business college use Twitter. I've seen faculty in arts and sciences use Piazza. There's lots of ways of doing this, and if you're interested, please reach out to me, ken.griffith@ttu.edu, and I can put you in touch with faculty that have tried different ways, and perhaps you can give that a shot. So, I want to recommend something else. Depending upon the size of your course, you may have access to graduate teaching assistants. If you don't have a TA, I recommend that you speak with either your department chair or your graduate student coordinator in your department. The simple fact is that during this time, departments are trying to find ways to support graduate students who are not on grant funding. And so that can be fairly challenging. This is definitely a way to help with that. So teaching assistants can be very beneficial in helping you with distance courses. The way that they can do that is that they can help you with some of the tedium of posting and grading and correcting and things of that nature, while you're able to engage more with students in those three recommendations I just made. So in spirit of trying to keep things short and sweet, I'm going to wrap this video up, but that doesn't mean that that's all there is to talk about in creating a good distance course. So in the next video, in what we'll call a two-part series, we're going to talk about your syllabus. So now that you've sketched out a plan for the development of your new distance course, it's time to consider policies. So it's not a good idea to assume that your face-to-face syllabus will just simply transition to be your distance syllabus. Distance is a completely different animal. So we'll talk again, and we'll talk specifically about your syllabus. See you soon, and take care.